Okay, welcome back. So today I have a story that embodies a narcissistic family dynamic to the T, and it's funny and also really sad. So anyway, the story is about a tale of two weddings. First, my brother's wedding, who is the golden child in my narcissistic family, and my wedding, and I am the scapegoat in the narcissistic family. So first, let's talk about my brother's wedding. So my brother met this gal, and they were together for, maybe a month, and they decided to get married, which, that happens all the time, and that is great. So they decided to get married, and the gal wants a really big, fancy wedding. And they chose a great big, fancy hotel in the middle of town, and they invited a ton of people, and so the cost of the wedding quickly skyrocketed, and to pay for that, my parents mortgaged their home. So I think the cost of the wedding was somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000, and this was for a single day event. And you know how weddings are; they can get expensive. So anyway, this is like a huge deal. The golden child of the family's getting married. Everyone is coming. Everyone is so happy for my brother. And at this point, I'm living in my brother's driveway in a cab over camper. And I'm not sure if I quit drinking at the time. Anyway, I was at a very low, this was like the lowest point of my life. Recently broke up with my girlfriend. Left that situation. I'm living in a cab over camper in the driveway. And anyway, so it's the wedding. And so my narcissistic mother calls me up, and this is before I knew anything about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, whatever. And she sits me down, and she wants to have a big talk about my brother's wedding. And she is concerned that I'm going to ruin his wedding by being drunk and causing a scene. And she is very concerned about that and wants to make sure that I'm not going to do that and ruin his wedding. So, okay, yeah, she warned me to not ruin his wedding, and so that was the whole thing. And I was one of the best men at the wedding. There were several of us, and the day of the wedding, yeah, it was a big to-do. The gal had a bunch of friends in town. They're all staying at the house. It was cool. So they get married. It's a big party. There's, I don't know how many hundreds of people there. And everything went fine. I didn't get drunk and make a big scene. And I never intended to do that. Of course, I'm not going to ruin my brother's wedding. But, so yeah, they pull it off. And then, it was a pretty standard wedding. And, I can say I thought it was good, and everyone had a good time. And then, fast forward, so they're playing house, they're newly married, and that marriage lasted, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or 2 years, and then they're divorced. So, that big investment, all that energy, in the narcissist's mind, the greatest event in the world, kind of just amounted to a lot of debt, which they're all still paying off. It's not a great thing to go in debt for a wedding to someone that you just met. So 2 years later, they're divorced, and then he has to pay her alimony or some kind of settlement, and the family comes to me to put up the money. It was like 10 grand. So of course, I'm not privy to this whole narcissistic thing, and being the scapegoat, everything's my fault. I want to do everything I can to to be in the right here. So yeah, I pony up the cash, and they pay her off, and that's it. The underlying theme of why they got divorced was because I met my wife now, and And because we're together and we were all living in the same house, my wife and I mean, it was actually my place that I was renting. I was letting my brother and his wife live there for free, to help them out as newlyweds. But anyway, I get a girlfriend, and then we, are all living in the house. It's putting pressure on my brother and his wife because they want that house for themselves. It's, they have to pay anything to live there. And I suggested they ought to get their own place. And they did. They found a home to buy, and they got in for like $160,000, which is unheard of nowadays. And they're able to move in there. And then, a year later, they were divorced. But the cause of their divorce was me putting pressure on them to leave that living situation and then getting a girlfriend. So anyway, that's kind of why they got divorced in the narcissist's eyes, and my brother and I think my dad too. Anyway, that's the golden child's wedding. My wedding, the scapegoat's wedding. So my wife and I meet, we're together, we're living together for a couple years. We decided we want to get married and have a family. So we decide on a wedding venue, and it's on the coast. It's about a 2-hour drive from where we live. And we decided on a small wedding. We had about 10 or 11 people there. And we wanted to invite, her family. They live on the East Coast. My family's on the West Coast. We wanted her parents and my parents, and then a few of our close friends. And none of her siblings came out. It was just her folks. So anyway, we choose this venue, and then we pay for everyone to come and stay. And the wedding cost is about $10,000 to rent the venue and then pay for everyone to stay there for, I think it was 2 nights. And so I invite my parents and my brother, and we give everyone the heads up. 6 months in advance. It was on my brother to get his own room. Of course, the very last day, he doesn't do that. My parents buy him a room so he can come to the wedding. Whatever, that's fine. So the day of the wedding, we're all driving to the venue to get there, and my parents get lost. They don't know how to get there. It's impossible to read a map, and they get in an argument, and it's a big ordeal. On the way to the wedding, my mom saw some clear-cut logging, and that triggered her. So when she arrives to the venue, it's just like full of complaining about how the drive was too long and they got lost. And then she saw clear-cutting, and this is going to be horrible. Everything is bad. And so it just started out with kind of a negative vibe coming from my family. So anyway, we have our rehearsal dinner, whatever, everything's fine. My family's on, pretty good behavior. We do the ceremony on the beach. It's great. Everything's pretty mellow. And then we get back to the wedding venue to then have the dinner. And we're just hanging out, whatever. We get ready to have the dinner, and that's where my narcissistic mother, I think she just said, I don't know what happened. I think she just had enough, and she couldn't. For one, she hates my wife because my wife is a seer, and she really sees through that narcissistic abuse and what my mom does to me. And my wife is anti all of that. Of course, she doesn't want someone abusing someone she cares about. So anyway, my narcissistic mother could not contain herself at dinner. And so what happened was she proceeds to we're all sitting at this table, and there's only 10 or 11 of us, and she starts having a meltdown about how there's too much food. There's too much food, and it has caused her to overeat. So now she's sick, and she feels sick, and she can't be here at this dinner. It was this big uproar, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever you need to do, go back to the room or whatever." So she can't be at the dinner, And this is kind of at the beginning of the dinner. And you know, you got to keep this in mind. Like, this is the only dinner that, you know, a married couple is going to have celebrating their marriage. Like, this isn't going to happen again. But okay, so she freaks out and leaves. And then my dad starts to have a temper tantrum about how he didn't get the right dinner. And so, of course, I give him my dinner to keep him happy. And I just asked him, I was like, just, can you please, you know, just enjoy this meal with me, man. This is this is celebrating, I'm getting married. And all you can do is just complain and throw a temper tantrum at your kid's wedding. So he can't last, and he's like, I have to go back to the room and be with your mother. So the narcissist little lapdog bails on the dinner too. And dinner's like only an hour long, you know, come on. So he bails. And we're just like, the vibe was so cool between my wife's family and just our friends, that it was, you know, I know my mom was really trying hard to like really disrupt just the general feeling that everyone was experiencing, but she couldn't do it because we just basically just ignored all that. They left, and then things just proceeded on pretty normally. You know, they were in their room and gone, but then the following day, my mother was all concerned about how this wedding is triggering my brother, because he's been divorced and it's been a few years, and how it's making him depressed. And so they are concerned about my wedding triggering him, you know, the golden child, and we need to be mindful of that. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, okay. And then, so another really interesting thing, there's a tradition with weddings that the parents and the people that attend the wedding, that you bring a gift to the wedding. And I'm not saying like you got to bring a gift and that, you know, if you don't, whatever. All I'm saying, it's just tradition. And anyone that has been to a wedding, yeah, you bring a gift or a card or just something. So guess what my parents brought? Nothing. They didn't even bring a gift. And it was like, it was like, you guys, come on. It was like kind of embarrassing for me, because my wife's family, they brought, you know, they gave us a card, and then they helped pay for our honeymoon, which we went to Fiji for a honeymoon, and that was really generous. And like, I'm so thankful for that. But my parents, yeah, man, nothing. So then we get back home, and then, you know, my mom digs this scarf out of like a box and gives it to my wife, and then this little wooden heart that I think she made or something. So anyway, they gave us something. So at the end of the day, you know, I think she really was triggered by the whole event, and, you know, in the traditional narcissistic fashion. And she was doing all she could, you know, to try to ruin that day for my wife and I. And really, the testament to, you know, fighting, you know, battling these narcissists and taking your power back, it's really you just ignore them, because all they're trying to do is cause a big uproar and a big, you know, dust up, and then get everyone to focus on them. And ultimately that's what she was trying to do at that wedding dinner, because she couldn't really do it during the other the ceremony and the other events, but that's where she chose to you know, to take her stand. But, you know, honestly, whatever. And that's their choice. You know, they don't want to be a part of that event, then that's okay. So fast forward 8 years, my wife and I are married, happily married, and we have 2 children. And, you know, there you go. The scapegoat wedding in a narcissistic family, and the golden child wedding in a narcissistic family. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story.